The warship came out of slipstream with the grace of a predator that had forgotten how to miss. It was old, its hull marked with scars that predated most of the crew now serving in the United Earth Fleet, but its weapons were new, retrofitted by vengeful hands and funded by hatred that had fermented for 3 decades. Inside the command deck, a single figure stood motionless before a cracked viewport. His name was Kellen Voss, and he had once been a commander in this very fleet. That was before the betrayal of Centauri 3, before the Admiralty Council had labeled him a rogue, stripped his rank, and left his squadron to die against the swarm. He alone had survived. The Council had called it a tactical withdrawal. Voss called it murder. For 30 years, he had lived in the fringe systems, trading his skills for parts, building alliances with outcasts and pirates, and feeding the single burning purpose that kept him breathing. He would return. He would find the Admiral who had signed the order to abandon his people, and he would make that Admiral suffer in ways that humanity had forgotten were possible. His intelligence network, crude but effective, had confirmed that Admiral Theris Morven was now commanding the home fleet from the flagship Sentinel, stationed at the Mars orbital dock. Morven was the one. She had been the youngest flag officer on the Council, the one who argued that Voss's squadron was expendable. Her career had risen on the ashes of his men. The rogue fleet that followed Voss was small but deadly. 3 cruisers converted from ore haulers, their interiors now packed with torpedo batteries. A destroyer stolen from a corporate security force, its IFF spoofers upgraded to mimic civilian vessels. And his own flagship, the Revenant, a heavy cruiser that had been left for dead in a nebula and had been resurrected with forbidden AI-assisted targeting systems. 240 souls, each with their own grievance against the Earth government, each willing to die for a chance to see the mighty brought low. Voss did not ask for loyalty. He asked for obedience. And they gave it, because he had never lost a fight. The Mars orbital dock appeared on the long-range sensors like a jewel strung on a thread of light. Voss allowed himself a thin smile. The home fleet was at half strength. Most of its ships rotated to the outer rim to deal with a minor uprising. The intelligence was solid. Morven's flagship, the Sentinel, was docked for a scheduled AI core recalibration, which meant its weapons were offline and its crew had reduced alert. Voss had planned this for 6 months. The approach vector used a blind spot created by Phobos's gravitational shadow. The jamming frequencies were keyed to the exact bandwidth of the dock's early warning network. The boarding parties were already suited up, their mag boots polished and their plasma cutters charged. He gave the order. The Revenant and its pack of misfit warships slipped through the net without a single alarm. They emerged from behind Phobos at maximum burn, closing the distance to the dock before the traffic controllers could even register a deviation. Voss watched the Sentinel grow from a dot to a monstrous shape of dark metal and glowing ports. He could almost see the bridge, almost see the woman who had cost him everything. His hand hovered over the comm panel. He wanted to hear her voice before he ended her. He wanted her to know the first volley was surgical. Torpedoes punched into the dock's defensive turrets, turning them into expanding clouds of debris. The second volley targeted the Sentinel's engine housings, not to destroy, but to cripple. Voss wanted Morven alive. He wanted her on her knees. The boarding tubes extended from the Revenant's belly like the legs of a metal spider, latching onto the Sentinel's emergency airlocks. His best teams went first, veterans of a dozen boarding actions, their armor painted a matte black that drank the light of the burning dock. Inside the Sentinel, alarms were screaming. But the response was slow, exactly as predicted. The crew was scrambling, but they were disorganized, their officers caught off duty or in the middle of shift rotations. Voss's people cut through the first to bulkheads without losing a single man. They were inside the flagship. They were coming for the Admiral. Voss followed in the third wave, his personal armor a customized suit of stolen fleet tissue plating, painted with the old insignia of his lost squadron. He carried no rifle. He carried a ceremonial fleet dagger, the same model that had been presented to every graduating officer at the academy. He intended to use it. He moved through the corridors of the Sentinel with a map burned into his mind. The bridge was 3 decks up and 200 meters forward. He passed dead crewmen, some killed cleanly, others caught in the explosive decompression of a breached compartment. He felt nothing. They had served Morven. They had served the people who had left his friends to be eaten alive by the swarm. He reached the bridge access corridor. His team had already sealed the blast doors and planted charges. The leader of the boarding party, A grizzled woman named Sotov nodded at him. Admirals inside. Life signs show 1 command level officer, and for aides. No security detail left standing. Voss stepped forward. He placed his palm against the cold metal of the blast door. Open it. The charges blew, and the door sagged inward. Voss walked through the smoke, his boots crunching on twisted alloy. The bridge of the Sentinel was a cathedral of warfare, holographic displays flickering with damage reports, crew stations abandoned in panic. And there, standing alone in front of the main viewport, was a figure in a crisp fleet admiral's uniform. She was tall, silver-haired, her back straight despite the chaos. She did not turn around. Voss raised his voice. Admiral Ferries Morven, you abandoned my squadron at Centauri 3. You signed the order that left 312 souls to die. I have returned to claim what is owed. The figure turned. But the face that met Voss was not the face he had carried in his nightmares for 30 years. It was older, yes, weathered by command and loss. But it was not the sharp, ambitious features of Theres Morven. It was a broader face, with kind eyes that had seen too much, and a jaw set with the kind of stubborn resolve that came from surviving things that should have broken a person. The Admiral spoke. Her voice was calm, almost tired. Commander Voss, I am Admiral Elena Radek. I took command of the home fleet 18 months ago. Admiral Morven retired to a civilian colony on Titan. She sends her regards, by the way. She speaks of you often. Voss felt the universe tilt. You're lying. Radek shook her head slowly. I am not. And I would advise you to look at the tactical display behind you. He turned. The main holographic tank, flickering but still functional, showed the space around Mars. The home fleet was not at half strength. It was not scattered. The ships were there, dozens of them, emerging from behind the planetary defense platforms, their weapons hot and their targeting solutions already locked. The intelligence had been a trap. A perfect, beautiful trap. And he had walked right into it. Radek took a step closer. She was unarmed. Commander, I know your story. Everyone in the fleet knows your story. You were wronged. You were abandoned. And for 30 years, you have been a ghost, a warning, a tragedy. But you made one fatal mistake tonight. You assumed that the person in charge was the same person who wronged you. You assumed that the Earth fleet had not changed. You assumed that we would not be ready. Voss raised the dagger. His hand was shaking. I don't care who you are. You're in my way. Radek did not flinch. You have 140 people on your ships. They followed you because they believed in your vengeance. But vengeance is a one-way trip, Commander. And right now, every gun in the home fleet is aimed at your vessels. I can give the order to fire, and your fleet will be reduced to scrap in 90 seconds. Or you can stand down, and we can talk. Talk. Voss laughed, a hollow sound. There is no talk. There is only what is owed. Radek's eyes hardened. What is owed is not my blood. It is not the blood of these crewmen you have already killed. What is owed is a reckoning with the system that failed you. And I am offering you that reckoning. Not through a blade in the dark. Through a tribunal. Through a public accounting of every decision made at Centauri 3. Admiral Morven has already agreed to testify. She has been waiting for this day, Commander. She knew you would come. She just did not know who would be sitting in this chair when you arrived. The dagger lowered an inch. Voss's mind raced. The trap was not just military. It was psychological. They had anticipated him. They had prepared for him. And they had put someone in his path who could not be painted as a villain. Radek was clean. Her record was spotless. She had spent her career fighting corruption, advocating for better support for frontline squadrons, pushing for accountability. Killing her would not be vengeance. It would be murder. Sotov's voice came through his helmet calm. Commander, we have multiple inbound signals. The home fleet is hailing us. They're not firing. They're asking for parley. Voss looked at the dagger in his hand. He looked at Radek's calm, waiting face. And for the first time in 30 years, he did not know what to do. The silence on the bridge of the Sentinel stretched into something heavier than any weapon fire. Admiral Elena Radek stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Watching the rogue commander's face cycle through emotions he had clearly not allowed himself to feel in decades, confusion, rage, a flicker of something that might have been shame. Voss's boarding team had gone still behind him, their weapons trained on the unarmed admiral, but their trigger fingers hesitant. They had come here for a monster. They had found a grandmother with a spine of steel and eyes that held no fear. Radek broke the silence. "Commander, your ships are running on low fuel. Your crew has been living on recycled protein bars and stolen reactor coolant for months. Your main gun on the Revenant is overheating because you jury-rigged a cooling system from a civilian freighter. I know all of this because my intelligence officers have been tracking you for 2 years. We let you get this close. We let you board because we wanted you to see the truth." Voss's voice was a rasp. "What truth?" "The truth that you are not an enemy. You are a wounded soldier who was failed by his commanders. And the Earth fleet of today is not the Earth fleet that left you to die. We have a new charter, new rules of engagement, a new Office of Fleet Accountability that has already tried and convicted 3 admirals for wartime negligence. Admiral Morven is not retired because she wanted to leave. She was asked to step down. And she agreed because she knew what she did was wrong." He stared at her. The dagger was still in his hand, but it hung at his side now, its point aimed at the deck. "If that is true, why did she not come herself? Why send you to die in her place?" Radek smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that had seen too many funerals. "She did not send me. I volunteered. Because I read your file, Commander. I read the after-action reports from Centauri 3. You did not retreat. You held the line for 4 hours after the order to withdraw. You saved a civilian transport full of refugees by sacrificing your own squadron. The swarm took your people one by one, and you kept fighting until your ship was a burning hulk. You are not a rogue. You are a hero who was given no other option." The words hit Voss like a physical blow. He took a step back. So Toph moved to steady him, but he shook her off. "Do not try to rewrite history with pretty speeches. The Admiralty Council painted me as a traitor. They stripped my name from every record. They told the galaxy that I had abandoned my post, and they were wrong." Radek's voice rose, not in anger, but in conviction. "The new council has already begun the process of restoring your record. It is not complete because we needed your testimony. We needed you to come home. We just could not find a way to invite you that you would not interpret as a trap." Voss laughed again, but this time there was no venom in it, only exhaustion. "So this was all a performance? You let me kill your people. You let me blow holes in your dock and shoot down your defenses just to make me feel welcome." Radek shook her head. "No one on this ship is dead, Commander. Your boarding teams used stun settings on the crew they encountered. Your torpedoes hit automated turrets, not manned positions. Every single person you thought you killed is currently sitting in a safe room to decks below, playing cards and waiting for the all-clear. We knew your tactics. We knew you did not like unnecessary casualties. That is why we chose to face you this way." Voss's mind reeled. He replayed the boarding action in his head. The crewmen he had seen lying in the corridors. They had not been bleeding. Their armor had not been breached. He had assumed they were dead because the alarms had been so loud and the smoke so thick. But they had been unconscious, stunned, every single one of them, so Toph spoke into his helmet again. "Commander, she is telling the truth. I am checking the life signs of the crew we passed. They are all alive, stable, resting." He looked at Radek. "Why? Why go through all of this? Why not just ambush us at the jump point and be done with it?" Radek took a step closer. She was close enough now to see the cracks in his helmet visor, the gray in his stubble, the tremor in his hands. "Because you deserve better than a bullet in the dark. Because your crew deserves better than to die for a lie. And because the Earth fleet needs commanders like you. We are facing a new threat on the Outer Rim, something worse than the swarm, something that does not negotiate or retreat. We need people who know how to fight when there is no hope of victory. We need people who have stared into the abyss and refused to blink." The dagger clattered to the deck. Voss did not remember dropping it. He only knew that his hand was empty and his chest was tight, and his eyes were burning in a way they had not burned since the day he had watched his last wingman signal vanish from his display. "You want me to come back? After everything, I want you to come home." Radek extended her hand. "The war is not over, Commander. It has just changed shape, and we cannot win it without you." Behind Voss, the boarding team had lowered their weapons. So Toph removed her helmet, revealing a face that was not hard but weary, the face of someone who had also been running for too long. She looked at Voss and nodded. "Not an order. A permission." Voss looked at Radek's hand. He thought of the 30 years he had spent in the dark, the cold sleep in asteroid bases, the deals made with murderers and smugglers, the faces of his dead squadron, which had visited him every night in his dreams, asking him why he had not died with them. And he thought of what Radek had just said. "You are a hero who was given no other option." He took her hand. Her grip was firm and warm, nothing like the cold steel of his armor. "If this is a trick," he said quietly, "I will find you. No matter how long it takes." Radek squeezed his hand once, then released it. "It is not a trick. But I need you to understand something, Commander. Your return will not be easy. There will be people who still see you as a rogue. There will be hearings and investigations and media attention. And there will be a trial for Admiral Morven, where you will have to sit across from her and tell the galaxy what she did. Can you do that?" Voss thought of the dagger on the deck. He thought of the revenge he had dreamed of for so long, the sweet release of watching Morven suffer. And he realized, with a clarity that felt like a blade through fog, that he had never really wanted her to die. He had wanted her to admit what she had done. He had wanted someone, anyone, to say that his people had mattered. "Yes," he said. "I can do that." Radek nodded. She turned to the holographic display and keyed the fleet-wide comm. "All home fleet units, this is Admiral Radek. Stand down from weapons free. The boarding action is concluded. Commander Voss and his people are to be treated as guests of the Earth fleet. Medical and engineering teams prepare to receive their vessels for repairs. And someone get the coffee machine working on the observation deck. I think the commander and I have a long conversation ahead of us." The display filled with acknowledgments. The guns of the home fleet powered down. The emergency lights on the dock switched to steady white. And on the bridge of the Sentinel, a rogue commander who had come for vengeance found himself standing in front of a viewport, watching the Earth rise over Mars and wondering if home was still a place he was allowed to have. So Toph walked up beside him. She did not say anything. She just stood there, her shoulder almost touching his. They had been through hell together, this small crew of outcasts and broken soldiers. And now hell had opened a door. Voss looked at the dagger on the deck. He left it there. He turned to Radek, who was already walking toward the bridge's exit, gesturing for him to follow. He took a step, then another. And behind him, his boarding party fell into formation, not as an invading force, but as soldiers coming home from a war that had never really ended. The coffee on the observation deck was terrible. But it was hot, and it was free. And it was the first thing Voss had drunk in 30 years that did not taste like rust and regret. He sat across from Admiral Radek, the red light of Mars spilling across the table between them, and he began to talk. He talked about Centauri 3. He talked about the swarm. He talked about the names of the 312 people he had failed to save. And Radek listened. She did not interrupt. She did not offer comfort. She just listened, because some wounds cannot be healed with words. They can only be held, carefully, until the pain becomes something that can be carried. When he finished, the sun was rising over the Martian plains. Radek stood up. "Welcome home, Commander. Your quarters are ready. Your crew will be billeted in the VIP wing. Tomorrow, we start the hard work. Tonight, you rest." Voss stood. He looked out the viewport at the fleet that had almost destroyed him, the ships that now floated peacefully in the dawn light, their crews already beginning the work of repairing the damage he had caused. He felt something stir in his chest. It was not vengeance. It was not hatred. It was something smaller and more fragile. Something that felt terrifyingly like hope. He turned to Radek. "Admiral." "Thank you," she smiled. "Do not thank me yet, Commander. The war is not over. And I have a feeling you are going to be very busy." She walked away, her boots clicking on the deck plates, leaving Voss alone with the rising sun and the ghosts that had finally, after 3 decades, begun to fade. He did not know what came next. He did not know if the tribunal would give him justice or merely a slower kind of prison.